Talk, no sugar added. I'm so glad you are here. As you know, we like to talk about real life topics to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. And today I found Mandy Capehart here, and she is the author of Restorative Grief, Embracing Your Losses Without Losing Ourselves. I love that title, Mandy. That's amazing.
Mm.
She's a speaker, she's a certified grief and life coach, and the founder of Restorative Grief Project, an online community of grievers and grief supporters looking for movement while they heal. I love that. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you, Mandy. Welcome to Straight Talk. Thank you so much for
Oh,
being
you're so welcome. Thanks for having me. And I loved your intro video. I was like, ooh, yes, I understand exactly what we're doing. It was good.
Thank you. So, the way I like to start the episode off is I always just ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we just take off from there. So, tell us a little bit about Mandy.
Okay. Well, Mandy, in third person today, is extremely intentional in all that she does. So I try really hard to be mindful and present in all the things that I'm doing. And it really led me down this path of many different careers into grief work when the pandemic started in the US. So
Mm.
after a long time losing people kind of left and right and experiencing a lot of loss events in my life, in 2016, my mom died. And it was right after
I'm
my
sorry.
grandfather had passed away. And we had really lost a lot of, I mean, we'd lost a lot of family and friends up until then, but obviously those two were pretty significant for me.
Mhm.
And as I worked through it in the 4 years between that event and pandemic shutdown, I recognized there was a lot of opportunity for our world to do better when it comes to grief and grievers and being grief supporters. So the work that I generated during the pandemic came out of being let go and having more of my own grief events. Like I like to say that the pandemic really took the focus of everyone's sympathy and empathy off of me and our miscarriages and loss of jobs and all the other things
Mhm.
and put it on everybody else
Mhm.
because I have to, we laugh to give the crying a break sometimes is
Yeah.
what I think. So anyhow, yeah, it really transformed into this powerful small community online and this ability to show up for people who want to be grief supporters but don't know how to do so without causing additional harm, or how to equip grievers to guard themselves, create healthy boundaries that are helpful for both themselves and the people around them as they work their way through grief, which is
Mhm.
ongoing.
Yeah, it is. It's really powerful, Mandy. So if you don't mind, I would like to touch a little bit on that. Like, I think that, it's one thing to grieve. It's another thing to take it to a place where you're trying to help grievers, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to know that transition for you. Like, what hurt you, or what did you feel lacking, right?
Mm,
That you said,
mhm.
okay, I'm hurting here, and I think other people are going through this and I need to help them, right?
Yeah.
Because I think all of us, of course, and we all experience loss, right? But then we experience loss and then we move on, right? We go on to the next loss or whatever you want to say. But there takes a special person, I think, that will stop and then help others through their grief, right? So
Mm.
what was that for you? What were you missing, or was there something missing? Maybe I should pose the question that way. Was there something that you saw, or something that caused you to say,
Mhm.
hold on a second, I need to
Yeah.
I need to help in this area?
Yeah. Well, there definitely was. And for us, about, I think it's almost been 9 years now, my husband's best friend passed away, and we were all involved in the same church community. They'd all known each other since they were about 18, and I came along a few years later. And he died pretty quickly. I think it was about 8 months of just fighting cancer. And his
Mm,
widow and their two little kids were loved unendingly in the church for about a month or two after he passed. And then support waned. And then the phone calls stopped, and she would reach out to me, or I would reach out to her. And over the years, consistently would hear, "You're the only one who still talks to me." And it wasn't a matter of people not caring, because we share the same friend circle and I know who they are. But I
mhm,
witnessed what happens in the life of a griever when
mhm,
people think, "Oh, you're still grieving," which, as someone who is pretty confrontational to, maybe not even confrontational, but just willing to push back on comments like that, I was so determined to create a better narrative for people like her who were struggling to be seen and heard and
um,
appreciated and to be
mhm,
understood, that grief lasts a
mhm,
lifetime. And I experienced something very similar. When my mom died, my friends loved me, but they didn't know what to do with me. After a couple of weeks of support and calls, or months later, a number of people were really, really intentional about connecting
Mhm.
with me. But in the interim, all of these people that I didn't really have deep relationship with or connection with felt, I think, almost obligated to show up or to express sympathy, which, to be honest, isn't super helpful. And I think people who have gone through active grief and received hundreds of platitudes and sympathy cards that stack up, you just get to a point where they lose their meaning because they feel like a perfunctory act. And so my
Mhm.
work became this opportunity to retrain, especially the church, how to do a more intentional grief program, I guess, but really how to equip every individual with the ability to shut their mouths and understand what they're listening for when they say they want to be a grief supporter, instead
Mm.
of, doing what they think was effective for them by asking
That's
questions
deep.
and all those
That
things.
is deep, woman. That is deep. I love that. It's funny because a friend of mine had lost their father, and everybody's like,
Mm,
"Oh, what should we do? What should we do?" And I'm like, "Well, a lot of people are going to do a lot of things right now. What
yeah.
we should think about is what are we going to do 2 months from now? What are we
Mhm.
going to do 3 months from now? Right?" Um, and I think it's because it is a common situation for people to feel that pain. Like, all of us lose someone really
Mhm.
special to us. And so we don't know how to deal with that. Right.
Right,
Because everybody deals with grief so differently. Right. Some
right,
people can really get through the stages pretty quickly and move on, if you will. And then there's people who don't. Right.
right.
And so, Mandy, how do you then find that place, or maybe you don't, but how do you deal with someone who's okay, let me rephrase. How do
Mhm.
you actually advise people when
Mm,
they are have a family member or somebody that they love that is grieving um many years, like they can't seem to get through it, right? Because I think
mm.
that's the really hard part. You want to be empathetic and you want to be sympathetic, and at the same time you want them to live, right?
Sure.
So how do you deal with something like that? Because I think that's something I've noticed a lot in
It's
certain
common.
circles. Yeah, it's very common because I think, again, people don't really know how to deal with grief, really, right? And the church
Yeah.
hasn't done a very good job. I think they
No.
try to. I really
Oh,
do
yeah.
think they try because it is about love, and they really do try to get you the food when you're, because they don't want you to
Yeah.
cook, and they try to be there for you and try to make phone calls and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But at some point they do dwindle off and you're still left alone holding this grief,
Right.
right? So how
Yeah.
do we help people through that when when it's a long-term thing, like it's been a
Yeah.
long time?
The long haul. The first thing I do with anybody is tell them, break up with the 5 stages. Get that out of your head, because grief is cyclical, it's not linear. And
Yeah.
those 5 stages are, denial, um, oh, I've gotten them out of my head, and so all of the sudden I'm blanking. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And the truth is those were developed in response to witnessing terminally ill patients come to terms with their own life coming to an
Mm,
end. It doesn't
mm,
serve the rest of us, because we can experience all 5 of those stages in a 5-minute period.
yeah.
Not to mention, I don't know a griever who doesn't come back to anger. Every time someone tells me,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm not really angry," I'm like, "You are, but it manifests differently, and that's okay." We'll get
Yeah.
to that at some point. Um, Removing what we believe to be true about grief and what we have experienced in our story is how we show up on behalf of other people. Because
Mm,
the platitudes, the comments that we make, the advice that we give, the books that we recommend, the teachers, all of the resources that we offer are things that we either have not actually interacted with and just think look effective, or we have experienced freedom from them in our story. And so we assume that they will help other people, which is not true. My book, for example, is part memoir, part guidebook. And I'm very specific when someone asks me, would this be good for so and so? I ask a lot of questions, and half of the time I say, no, that book would not be effective for them. It would actually cause more harm. Don't you dare.
mm,
Or
mm.
say, I know the person who wrote this if you're interested in asking them some questions, and I'm happy to do that. But as grief supporters, we have this unintentional behavior that centers us in the narrative on someone else's story. So we show up and we find out that someone that we love has passed away and their spouse is standing in front of us. We are overcome, understandably so. And whether or not we decide to, grieve actively right then and there, or simply say, oh my gosh, what can I say to you, this person, to no longer feel uncomfortable, because it's uncomfortable to be
Yeah.
faced with loss. And
Yeah.
in that moment, we have the choice to center on our own and focus on our own discomfort and say the comforting thing, or we can be quiet. I got a text message today from a dear friend. She had a third miscarriage. My response was not, girl, I see you. I'm so sorry. God works all things out for his good. It's going to be great. This baby is with Jesus, whatever. I said nothing but, damn. Okay. What do you
Mhm.
need? And, or I'm going to check in with you in 2 days.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
can I bring you dinner tonight?
Mhm.
Because it has nothing to do with what I know to be grief. It has nothing to do with the fact that I've experienced miscarriages as well.
Right.
Every one of our grief stories is as different as our DNA. And the second we can acknowledge that I don't carry the wisdom to make this any better, we enter into a place where our humility is what leads us into service instead of
Mhm.
an obligation or a feeling that we have to do something because we don't want them to be hurting. They don't want to be hurting either. But the truth is, we all grieve, whether we do it with attention to the grief process or by coping mechanisms and kind of stuffing it away. And then we get 20 years down the road and realize, oh, that's still an issue because I never fully integrated that understanding into my life. I didn't
Mhm.
make this something that I can live with in a way that is meaningful. I just made it something that I can live with
Mhm.
and
Damn.
pretend it didn't happen. So grief, grief
Yeah.
supporters want to do so much good. And I typically like to say, hey, stop trying to do good for a moment
Yeah.
and do something still. Like,
Mm.
so
That's really first off, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about your friend because that is
mm,
that is a heavy thing to carry.
yeah,
That's heavy. That hurts,
yeah,
and I wouldn't know what to say either, right? And I think most of us are in that position, right? And
yep,
I always or at least as I've matured, as I've gotten older, I stopped saying the things like, "Oh, everything happens for a reason and your
right.
job is with God." And I've stopped that because
Good job.
yeah, I stopped that because I realize it's not helpful. It's not
Right.
helpful. And when I'm grieving, I just want to tell you to shut the F up. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just being real, but like, I've had
Yeah.
loss too, and I'm just like, just shut up. I
Right.
don't, it's not what you want to hear at the moment. And maybe you
Right.
do believe that, even if you do. I'm a Christian, so I do believe that. But even though I do believe that, even through my grief, I didn't want to hear it. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a good
I think,
response you gave her. How did she
oh,
feel
thank
about
you.
that? How do you
Oh,
think
she
she feels
responded with a
about that?
heart emoji.
Yeah.
She knows me really well. It was the same thing with another friend today on Twitter, said something like, I'm sad and miserable. And I know this person well enough to say, I'm going to make you laugh, but this is why. Not for the sake of, oh, cheer up, Charlie. But I said, dear griever, dear friends, this is how we respond. I love you. I'm with you. And if you want to unpack it with me and don't have someone else to unpack it with, I'm available. Let me know. Versus, oh my gosh, you're not happy and or sad and miserable. You're happy and full of life. You are joyful. You need to express yourself. And so many people replied and said, "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." And I was like, I just didn't see any of that crap yet, and so I wanted to undercut it before it even started. I don't want anyone platituding or shooting on my friend when they're down. And I think that that's
Mhm.
to your point where, you can believe that and hold that as a truth and still remain in a position of grief because it's an experience and an emotion, and we
Yeah.
can have two things at the same time to be true. But
Mhm.
in those moments, we say, go F yourself, because we are allowed to experience the full range of
Yeah.
emotions of our humanity. It's actually really necessary.
Yeah, it is.
And when we continue not to do so and pretend that we're fine, or no, we're just getting through it, or life is good, God is good all the time, God is good. You hear those things and you cringe because you're like, but I want that to be tangibly real. And in this moment, it's just surface real. In
Yeah.
this moment, I don't know how to respond to everything happens for a reason other than, yeah, they died of cancer. There was cancer in their body, and that was the reason.
Right,
that
right,
it
right,
happened,
right,
right?
right,
You're trying to assign a grander meaning to something for someone who might not accept it or believe the same way that you do, and so
right,
finding
right.
ways to be quieter, it's pretty
That
valuable.
yeah, it's so valuable, right? And really deep. And what your work that you're doing is going to help a lot of people because a lot of us, like I said, I think I think I speak for the majority of people that it is an uncomfortable thing and it is very scary because you love this person that's grieving if you're friends or love
Mhm.
this person and you don't want them to be in pain. So you
Right,
think that you're cutting it by saying something like that. But
right.
Mandy, is there a moment where it may become unhealthy for that person to have grieved for so long? Is there a moment
Mm.
that becomes like when you're like, now I am concerned? Is there
I think framing it as looking at what is helpful and what is harmful is a very meaningful way to approach it, because let's let's say that our friend has been drinking more often than we are
yeah.
used to seeing, and we're concerned and we don't want to rock the boat because we know that that is already a sensitive thing and they're already in pain. You have certain people in your life, they're allowed to call you on your stuff.
Mhm.
If I'm not that person to you, I'm probably not in a good position and
Right.
probably shouldn't insert myself because it'll exacerbate and break relationship. But if I have connection to people that I know are that person's center person, it's really easy for me to go to them and say, "Hey, how are you doing? Who are your like core people?" And kind of play investigative journalist for a minute and really
Mhm.
get to know where they're at, because the truth is coping behaviors and the things that the people are doing, or these long term what appear to be, grieving and detachment stuff, that's all mental health professional standard work, right? That's
Mhm.
not the
Mhm.
layperson, but we're the ones that see it. And
Mhm.
so the more that we remind them they're not alone, those masks, those behaviors, the things that we're really concerned about are symptomatic of something
Mhm.
bigger. And
Mhm.
helping and loving someone very patiently through that process doesn't mean fixing them. It doesn't mean correcting it. I mean, we would love if someone
It's
could
so good.
snap their fingers and fix it, but
Mhm.
our role
Mhm.
isn't to do that. Our role is to say, "We love you and we're here. What do you trust me? And if so, what are you struggling with? I would love to come alongside you, not to fix it, but to offer resources or to ask questions." I like to tell people you need friends in your life because if the back of your hair is a mess, you can't see it without a mirror,
Right.
or a really good friend who will tell you, "Girl, you got to deal with something back there." It's the
Mhm.
same thing with our lives. We don't realize what we're experiencing until someone else reflects it back to us. And then all of a sudden, the little synapses connect, and we've built this beautiful bridge of understanding. And now we get to move forward with that new information or not. We could choose to say, like, "Cool, I see what you're saying. I don't care."
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
there's, anyway, I could go on for that, but
No, I mean that's really good because I mean you just said so many powerful things, and I'm starting to like think about like how does this work for you, Mandy? Like,
Mhm.
I know that I have a beautiful audience of people that love to like follow people that they listen to on my show, and they're really interactive, and I love you guys. You guys are amazing audience. Um, how do you do this then, Mandy? How is this work done? Like how do you go through
Mhm.
helping navigate someone
Yeah.
through this when they
Yeah.
contact you?
It's a good question. So I work my one-on-one coaching practice is full right now. So primarily I'm working in the Restorative Grief Project, which is an
Okay.
online private free coaching group that you mentioned earlier. And the beautiful thing about that is it's a very low key, safe place where there are zero expectations of anyone doing any of the work.
Hmm.
But the idea is, hey, here's a safe place, a community where you can just come and observe people doing grief work. You can come be a fly on the wall if you need to, but at the same time, there are so many different guides and teachings built into the group that you can walk yourself through, that you can at any given point stop on something that I've developed and then ask questions or re-engage the group in this conversation.
Wow.
And it's this collective healing piece that has been so transformative for people, because the reality is we believe we have community until we start grieving, and then we look around and say, "Are you kidding me? I thought I had people, but I don't know how." And it sucks because that happens after the fact, when I wish, and I'm trying to teach people how to create that level of community, that tight little circle of people around them before there's crisis.
Yeah.
But that alone is hard to do. So I'm an extrovert, and I'm very much like, I joke that all my friends are introverts that I've snatched up in public and said, "Hello, I see you, and you're mine now." That I
Right.
collect them. So I get that it's not an easy thing to do for everybody. However, there's so much value in getting outside of our comfort zones in that
Yeah.
respect, because grief will not respect your comfort zones. Grief will say you're now in misalignment in every part of your aspect, or every part of yourself. So in the group itself, all of the work that I'm doing is based on this whole self model of grieving, knowing that we are whole individuals, mind, heart, body, and spirit. And in grief, we go into misalignment in all those areas. And our role to find healing looks like looking at observing our lives in a way that we identify what has turned us out of alignment with our values and what we want and who we believe we are and where we're headed. And then finding practices that bring us back into alignment. So if we notice, like, hey, my thoughts are super intense, they're really scaring me, or they're really negative all the time, or gosh, my emotions are just a roller coaster, I don't know what to do, or my body is having aches I've never had before, migraines, tummy issues, or even my spirit is completely numb and disconnected from everyone around me, and I have zero interest in connecting with any spiritual
Yeah.
practices that I experienced before.
Mhm.
All four of those can happen at the same time. So advising people to look at themselves with a new lens, whether that's through someone else that they trust, or simply by sitting down and being very vulnerable and honest with ourselves about what hurts the most, because you
Mm.
can't focus on all four at once, but
Yeah.
identifying which one is the most pressing for you. Would you like to be rid of those intrusive thoughts? Would you
Mhm.
rather get your emotional state to one that feels more even keel? What is it that we can support you through? And then helping people identify what it is that hurts, how it is out of alignment with their values, and what actions or techniques they are comfortable with or they're interested in taking that they can commit to for themselves to move forward. Because the truth is,
Mhm.
every time we commit to an action, we will experience even iota of healing each time that we do it. And so as we practice, we take stock on the front end. Oh, I feel, crappy, 10 out of 10 crappy. And then we get to the end of whatever practice we've established for ourselves and we say, okay, I feel 9 out of 10 crappy. That's healing. Even though I
Right.
still feel 9 out of 10, it's better than I was. And so where we celebrate, we go back to. So the more that we practice those little tiny steps, it's like
Yeah.
baby steps from What About
Yeah.
Bob, right? I'm doing the work.
Yeah, yeah, it's those little wins that you need, right? In
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
emotions and in your mind. I totally get that. So I have a couple questions. So one is, do you think that because you said that grieving is cyclical.
Yeah.
So do you think that you can be healed from grieving? Can you be healed?
Personally, I don't believe in closure. I think we are constantly being re-triggered and reminded of our pain and our losses.
Mm,
I do think there is healing available.
yeah,
I do think the more that we learn how to understand our stories and integrate what has occurred in our lives into the richness of who we are, we become fully and more human,
yeah,
fully alive, and learning how to lean more into the values and things that are important to us. I mean, there are plenty of people who believe they've been healed from their grief, and that's beautiful. I'm not going to question their existence. In my experience and in the clients I've worked with, not one of them has ever said, "Oh, cool, I'm healed. I'm done. I no longer feel
yeah,
any
yeah.
sense of loss on that person." And the people that I have found, this is going to sound, I'm going to say it anyway, Nina.
Say it.
I'm going to say
Go,
it anyway.
girl. Straight
The
talk.
people who tell me that they're completely healed are the ones that are also feeding the platitudes to everyone around them,
Yeah,
which is the big red flag to me that says, you're not healed, you're masking. And it's getting you through. But are
yeah,
you living fully alive? Are you in
yeah.
alignment in all of yourself? Are you living into your values? Are you in your integrity? When you say, I genuinely believe this, I'm like, your certainty has, ooh, girl, it is thick. Is it actually serving you well? And is it showing up for you on behalf of everyone around you? Because if I walk into a room and I have caused harm because of my certainty about grief work, the first thing I'm going to do is say, please tell me so that I can shift what I'm doing. So
Mhm.
if your certainty, if you walk into a room and you've helped all these people through grief and they can all say unequivocally, yep, everything she says is true and is helpful. Okay, but somebody's lying to you. Like, I'll
Right,
just,
right, right. I was gonna say, who's selling that bridge, Mandy? Who's selling that
yeah, it's
bridge?
just not.
I'm
I
glad
haven't
you
seen it.
said that. I'm so glad you said that though, because I don't want anybody who is listening to us right now to think that they do have to be healed. And that
Mhm.
happens, right? You get like this misconception that you don't want to tell people that you're still hurting because you should
Right.
have been healed by now. And you don't
Yep.
want to tell a person that, oh, I lost my child, but I'm good. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
okay. And it's okay not to be good. So that's why I'm glad you said that,
Yeah.
because I think there is a huge misconception that you are supposed to be healed. And I'm so glad you answered it that way, because you're not going to be healed. And it's okay. I mean, you're just going to
Yeah.
have really good days and really not so good days, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's beautiful. And I did want to ask you about, um, when it comes to grieving, do you deal with grieving all on a level that is grieving, or is there levels of grieving? Like, and what I mean by that is, I lost a child, I lost a job,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
You can grieve both, you really can, right? Or you
Mm-hmm.
can, you can grieve them both. So do you think that there are different ways of dealing with the grief according to what the grief is or why it's there?
So short answer is no. What you're talking about is disenfranchised grief. And so there are grief professionals in the world who will say that absolutely there's a hierarchy of pain and loss.
Mm,
That is where you hear people justify minimizing their own loss by saying, well, I'm really sad about losing my job, but there's a war in the Ukraine, so I guess I should buckle up,
mhm,
buttercup, because my life isn't so bad. It could be worse. Those are all minimizing statements that steal your ability to remain present with yourself. And so anytime I hear someone say, "Oh, I lost a job. I broke up with them. I was expecting this thing and it didn't happen. I lost a child." It does not matter to me where your loss came from. If it is affecting your ability to fully be a human and participate in your life, then your
wow.
loss is valid. And and that's one thing that as a grief supporter, you can be I try to empower people to push back when they hear that language, not in a, "Hey, screw you. You can grieve and that's what you need to be doing," but in
Right,
a, "Hey, do you know that your loss is just as valid as the refugees who've just immigrated to the country
yeah,
or as the mom who just miscarried?"
yeah.
Because your pain is real and there's no one on earth who has my respect who says otherwise, who says that, well, actually losing a spouse is the worst pain to you.
To who?
And
Right,
I'm
right, yeah, to who? Right,
to
right.
whom? To some
And
people, losing a
yeah,
spouse would be a godsend, right?
right.
That would be a healing moment for them to be removed. And so, well, that got dark quickly. Sorry.
Randy, you are a trip, but very true, right? And I was
Yeah.
thinking about a really dear, close friend of mine whose daughter is alive, but she lost the ability to swallow. She can't eat like that anymore, or whatever.
Mm,
That is grieving as well.
huge.
They are grieving this child having
Yep.
that full life that they wish, like every parent has
Expectation
for
of
their
a
yeah,
future,
yeah, yeah,
independence,
yeah, yeah,
mobility, the
right,
experience of going overseas and enjoying a meal you've never had,
right,
seeing a recipe that all you want to do is eat that, but you can't chew it and swallow it. Yeah,
right.
there are secondary losses that, and this is, I think, where a lot of the grief comparison comes from. We don't recognize the significance of secondary losses when something happens. So let's say I've broken up with a boyfriend and it was my decision. I'm going to hear from people like, "Oh, well, but you chose this and it's for the
Mhm,
better," or
mhm,
"This is a better, this is, you're going to be fine." And that's true. Those things are true. Like, I chose it. And yeah, I'm going to hopefully get over this person and heal from what happened and understand why we broke up. But then I realized, oh, right. But we shared all of those friends and the friends are being weird and dividing. Okay, I've lost those relationships.
yeah,
Oh, but we also both really love that restaurant. And I don't think I can go there again without him. And, we had this dream of going to Italy, and holy crap, if I go, I'm going to think of him. Okay. This sounds dramatic, but this is true. Like, this is how people think.
yeah,
And we minimize those thoughts as
yeah,
if they're not okay. But if we were willing to say, well, what does that look like? What would it look like to integrate this dream of going to Italy, of eating at that restaurant again? How do I bring what I was going after in those dreams into alignment with what I actually want in my life? Well, if I want to travel, I don't have to write an entire country off because my ex was
Mhm.
from there or
Mhm.
because they wanted to go there too. Not going to run into them. Plenty of people go to other countries and
Mhm.
it's not affecting me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not that you need to have rational thoughts about how to work through grief because it's not possible. If it was irrational in the first place, rationality is probably not going to pull you out of it.
Right.
However, becoming aware of what has pushed you out of alignment in those areas and what is causing you to no longer feel comfortable in your own skin with those like decisions is how we can recognize all those secondary losses and dial it back in and with some compassion and curiosity for ourselves like, oh, that was a secondary loss. I didn't realize I had my hope in that too, but now that I've seen it, I'm not going to carry it for 30 years and suddenly be triggered when my now husband takes me to Italy and we say,
Right.
oh, I was 30 years ago I dumped a boyfriend and I thought I'd never come to Italy because of that.
Right.
Like it
Yeah.
seems so silly, but it's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, it's real. I love you, your energy. I love what you're saying. Like you're a straight talker like me, and I really, really love that. But you're doing it with such compassion, Mandy. But you're doing it
Mm,
also in a way that you're showing people. You know what? I'm going to be straight talk when I talk to you. But it's because I want you to learn. I want you to grow and I want you to
right,
be able to be there for the people that you love for real, like really be there and not
right.
dismissive, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't try to be dismissive. It's not I really don't believe people purposely try to dismiss people. I think
Right.
it's that uncomfortableness, right? Not knowing what to do. How do we do this? So what you're doing is really important. And so what I wanted to ask you before I let you go, the grief, what did you call it? Restorative grief
Restorative Grief Project.
project. So that project, can it be for both secondary loss and your primary loss, do you think?
Oh, yeah, it's for
Oh,
all
yeah.
of it. So it's full of
Great.
grief and grief
Great.
supporters, and anytime something comes up, I get 100 ideas about how can I present that in a way that's accessible to everyone I know. I have really big ideas about like, "Oh, I could reach the entire world and this would be great." So the truth is I can't. I have
Yeah.
to equip the people who can reach the people, and so that's
Yeah.
what the group is
Yeah.
for.
Awesome. So I want you to share all of that information because I know people
Yeah.
who listen to my podcast
Yeah, for
that
sure.
are definitely, going through this stuff like right
Yeah.
now, right? And I also want to send them to your place because there's a couple of people I already have in mind that I think could really
Mm.
benefit from that. Even me, like even just going on there and
Yeah.
learning, you know?
Yeah.
So give us that information on how people can I know you said your one-on-one coaching is booked right now, but give
Yeah.
us the information of how people can follow you, see what you're putting out there, be part of the group, all of that great stuff, please.
Yeah. So the Restorative Grief Project is free on Facebook. It's a private group that eventually will hopefully move off of Facebook, but right now it's there because they do groups really well.
Yeah.
The book itself, the book Restorative Grief, is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I'm on all the socials under at Mandy Capehart. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the things. Um, I write a bi-weekly column called Ask a Grief Coach on
Oh, nice.
medium.com. And I host two podcasts. The Uncomfortable Grace podcast is more of a faith-based, have difficult conversations like this with people who are experts in their field or in whatever topic is
Oh,
coming up
awesome.
for them, which is really fun. And then my
And it's
weekly
called what?
podcast,
What is that one called?
the
Uncomfortable?
Uncomfortable Grace podcast.
I gotta get that. Okay.
Yeah. I love it. The guests this season are blowing my mind, and I'm just like, I am not worthy. I am not okay. Um, and then the Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart podcast is weekly. It has interviews, but it also just has short little snippets. Because when you're grieving, it's really hard to take in information. It's hard to read, it's hard to listen, it's hard to focus beyond a minute at a time. And
Yeah.
so they're very short interview, or the interviews are longer, but the teachings are short. As are the chapters in the book. They're like a page and a half so that you
Oh,
can
wow.
digest something and really sit with it and feel capable of reconnecting to something without feeling like, cool, here's 32 grief books I've been given,
Right.
and I have no desire to read any of them.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
And as you're talking, I'm like, oh, Nina, you got so much to learn. I've done so many of these things, and as I'm
We
growing
all
older,
have.
yeah,
Yeah.
and as you're growing and I'm stretching and learning, I'm becoming more empathetic and more compassionate and more, and
Mm,
I'm a big extrovert as well, so I love to connect to people, and so sometimes you feel like you need to be there in that way, and sometimes
right.
I do the same thing, Mandy. I'll just go, damn, that
Yep.
freaking sucks.
Right.
You know, and that person's like, yes, that sucks,
It
and I think
sucks
that's all they
more
needed,
than anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But
Good
thank
to
you.
be
You
witnesses.
are amazing. I love
Mm,
you. You're
thank you.
amazing. I love the work that you're doing, Mandy. I really do.
Thanks, Neena.
Thank you.
It's not ever what I thought I would get into, but here we are.
Here we are, and you're doing it well. You're doing it well. So thank you
Thank you.
for being on Straight Talk. I appreciate you.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I know that you love this conversation. I know we could have probably talked for an hour, but we're going to keep
Awesome.
it cool. We're going to keep it cool. So make sure that you guys follow Mandy. I am going to put all of her information below, and her book information and all of that. I really want you to get into the project as well. I'll make sure to link that below as well. All her show notes will be there. If you have any questions or anything, it's hello@straighttalknosugaradded.com. If you can't find anything, but make sure that you like, subscribe, share, because this conversation was super important. And I think something
Mm.
we can all learn from. So thank you guys for being here. You know, I appreciate you. This is Neena Perez, Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Until next
This
time.
broadcast is brought to you by Winject Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.